Hello, my beautiful darlings. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Andres, and if you're hooked on books and stitches, you've come to the right place. Today's video is all about my August reading wrap up. We're going to be talking about the 7 books that I read this month and what all they were about and what I rated them and if I would recommend them. So let's get into it. As per usual, let's go ahead and start with the stats of the month. So for the month, I did read a total of 7 books. It was about 2,714 pages, and it took me about 9 days to finish each one. The moods ranged between a bunch of different types of moods, as per usual, from emotional, reflective, inspiring, to adventurous and sad. The pacing of the books was between 60% medium paced and then 40% fast paced, and then an equal 43% between books under 300 pages or between 300 and 500, and then 14% at 500 plus, which was really only one book, and you'll see which one it was. And then the genres are a mixed bag, as always, between LGBTQIA+, romance, literary, contemporary, magical realism, thriller, memoir, and fantasy. And then my overall star rating is a 4.29 star from all the ratings that I gave this month. 3 of those were 5 stars, 3 others are 4 stars, and then just 1 3-star. So pretty good books in my opinion. Now that the stats are completed and out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into the reading wrap up and my actual thoughts and comments about the books that I read. If you're new here, how I do my wrap ups is I'm going to start with the books that either I DNF'd or I rated the lowest, and then I worked my way all the way up to my 5-star reads. So in the month of August, I actually ended up DNFing 2 books, and those books were The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami and Thank You Next by Andy J. Christopher. The reason I DNF'd The Dream Hotel, I DNF'd it at the 43% mark. And the biggest reason why I DNF'd it is just that I felt like the story was very disjointed and it was a little bit confusing. It was being told through mixed media, and I don't mind stories being told by mixed media, but it was just so hard to grasp like the storyline that I'm supposed to be following. The concept and the premise of the book sounded really solid, and I really was looking forward to it. But when I was reading, when I passed like the 25% mark, it started getting a little convoluted for me, and I just wasn't understanding like what the hell was going on. So for those reasons, I'm out. No, I'm kidding. But for those reasons is why I DNF'd the book and I said, whatever, like, I'm not gonna waste my time if I'm confused and I don't know what's going on and I'm not really interested anymore. Like, forget it. And then I DNF'd Thank You Next by Andy J. Christopher because back in my 24-hour reading blog, I decided to go ahead and pick this one up. And I gave it up to the 25% mark before I DNF'd. And yes, I understand that that could be a little too soon to DNF the book. I totally get that. It's just I did not feel engaged since like the first page of this book. I felt no connection to any of the characters, and I know that you grow like this connection to the characters the longer that you read, but honestly, it's supposed to be a romance book that's, I think it was like under 300 pages. You really have to get the characters well developed very fast in the story, in my opinion, especially in a romance book that's short like that, just so you are gripped and you kind of give a shit to actually care about these characters and want to read about them and their love story or whatever the case is. So I'm not going to even go into any other details. It's just I really did not feel connected to the characters. I didn't care at all about the story, and I just found myself really bored and like just being drifting off, honestly, while I was reading. So for those reasons, I was like, forget it. I'm not into this at all. I'm DNFing. All right, so let's move into the books that I actually finished. The first one is Such Quiet Girls by Noel W. Eiley. This book was chosen as a book club book between me and my sister-in-law, as well as one of my boyfriend's cousins. We have this little book club book called Smut Sluts. I know it's not a smutty book, but we chose this one just to try change it up a little bit. And honestly, this book unfortunately did not hit the mark. My problem is that I read Ask for Andrea by Noel W. Eiley last year. Yeah, like January of last year, I think it was. And I loved that book. Like, I loved it. It was so good. So when I saw there was another book by her out, I was like, you know what? I know that Ask for Andrea was great, so why don't I give this a try? And I recommended it to the book club girls, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. This book, we're basically following this bus driver with kind of a troubled past, that she has been in jail, that she lost her daughter, like custody to her daughter, and she's trying to win back that custody and trying to grow a relationship with her daughter. She is now a bus driver for a school, and then there's 10 other kids within that bus, ranging around the age of like 5 to up to 12, I think it is, or 13, the oldest kid. So we're following them, and then all of a sudden the kids and the bus driver get kidnapped by these two men that are gonna hold them for ransom for X, Y, and Z reasons. They're being held for ransom within a storage container that's actually buried underground. So there definitely is a trigger warning of claustrophobia. If you do feel that you have claustrophobia, I would give you the heads up on just maybe keeping that in the back of your mind if you are going to read this book, because it does give you like the sense of being stuck underground with lacking oxygen, like fearing that these are the last few minutes that you're gonna have oxygen and be able to breathe and live. So yeah, we're following that. That those were none of that was spoilers. That's all given in the synopsis, and as well it's introduced very early on in the book. Now my problem with the book is that up to like maybe the 25% mark, up to the point that they get kidnapped, and the whole 9 yards happens throughout the kidnapping, and when they get to a storage container, everything was great. But then moving from there down all the way to the last back end part of the book, like the last 25%, it was so boring. So this is multiple POV. We're following multiple POVs, and there's different people that we're following within the same day. It's like a 2 or 3 day time frame that's happening, but we're following the same people, but it changes POV every other chapter in a sense. And it's not that it gets confusing, it's pretty easy to follow. It's just there was characters that we were following that I really didn't care that much about, and I didn't see the correlation as to why they were being brought into the story. And even at the end, this character is like, it still didn't make sense. Like, why was this person even involved? Like, why did we get their POV at all? But anyways, I have to admit that there was multiple points that I wanted to DNF the book too, especially during the middle section of the book. I was like, oh my god, there's nothing happening. It's like the same scene, just elongated in a way that is being, every little thing was being described in every little possible detail. It's like, I totally get it and I love that. But if we are in a thriller book, I'm trying to get to the next thing. I'm trying to find out. Like, I want to try to be play detective and figure out what's the next thing. Like, what do we need to figure out? What is the plan of action? Things like that. It was frustrating for me. But luckily, when we got to the nitty gritty and the strong third act of the book, that's where I was like, finally, like something's happening, something thrilling is happening. But all in all, I did rate the book a 3 star. It was a very average thriller. If you did read Ask for Andrea by Noel W. Iley, I don't particularly recommend this one, but at least there was a good payoff at the end. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so the next book we're going to talk about is Alman by Son Won Pyong. I'm so sorry if I said the name incorrectly. I have tried to look up how to pronounce the name, and I still can't get it right, even when I get the pronunciation read out to me. So I'm really sorry for mispronouncing the name, but nonetheless, this is the next book I want to talk to you guys about. And this book was actually kind of surprising in a very good way to me. So this book is based on this little boy that he is diagnosed with a brain condition called alexithymia, which is basically you can't really feel any type of emotion, or don't really understand how to feel those emotions in certain scenarios. Like, let's say someone just passed away that's very near and dear to you. This person with this brain condition would not really feel the sadness or the grief that a normal person would typically feel when a loved one passes away. And this little boy, he goes through that with every single type of scenario. Like, even if it's supposed to be a happy setting, he still doesn't know, he doesn't understand. So he grew up with mom and grandma, and mom and grandma always gave him like little clues and little post-it notes and would let him know, like, hey, for this situation, you would do this, or, like, oh, don't forget to smile at the person that's taking your order, or don't forget to say thank you and give a little nod at the end of your interaction with a human being or whatever, like things like that. But then something traumatic happens to him that kind of leaves him a little scarred in a sense. You could tell that he was left scarred from it, but it was definitely an event that changed him for the better and to help him progress in his condition for sure. Then there's a second little boy that we're following that's kind of like the exact opposite of the first boy. So he doesn't have any type of brain condition. He's just a normal human being. It's just that one time he was at the fair with his mom and then he got lost, and when he got lost he was lost for years, and then when they found him again like 10 years later, they found out that he went down the wrong path and that he had been in a juvenile detention center, and he was just unfortunately a bad kid because he ended up in the wrong hands basically. So we're following both of these kids, and they're basically polar opposites, and they meet each other and they create a very unlikely friendship of one that doesn't feel anything and another that feels everything. So the story, we're mainly following the boy with the alexithymia condition. We're mainly following him. So keep in mind that this is a little boy that doesn't have any emotions and doesn't know how to feel the correct emotions at the right times and things like that. But I feel like the author still did such a good job helping us try to understand where he's coming from and what he's actually feeling in moments of like distress or of happiness and things like that. It was really nice to see those things being portrayed, just because we have an understanding like, oh, this person does not feel anything, so where are we going to go with this? But the author did a really good job with trying to still convey those emotions without leading it to believe that this person doesn't actually have a condition. Like, it's still very imminent and present that he has this condition, but the author just knew how to write that and make you feel those emotions that you're supposed to feel without directly saying it, if you catch my drift. I hope you do. This is a very character focused story. Its main thing is character development. We really see how the two boys develop their friendship and how they develop as individuals themselves and how they grow. I'm pretty sure we go through a whole time lapse of a couple years at minimum. The juxtaposition between someone who can't feel anything and someone who could feel basically everything is so interesting, and it was really cool to see how the author meshed those two characters together, like such an unlikely duo to become best friends. I loved that. Overall, I rated the book 4 stars. It was a very solid read in my opinion. I read it during my 24-hour reading challenge, and I read it really fast, honestly. I read it in like 4 or 5 hours only, just because it was only like 250 or like maybe 280 pages. And it's also Korean literature, and I love Asian literature all in all. I feel like every Japanese lit that I've read in the past has been so good and so beautifully written that I just I don't know how to convey the emotion that I feel when I read Japanese and now Korean literature. Honestly, I love it. The next book we're going to talk about is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This book, we're following this girl by the name of Katie, who is traveling to Positano, Italy. That was supposed to be a trip that she had planned with her mom, but unfortunately her mom passed away right before the trip was going to happen. She ends up still going on the trip, and then she encounters a lady, which coincidentally ends up being a younger version of her own mom. And we go down this whole transformative journey of her experiencing grief and how she rediscovers herself and how she supersedes those very heavy emotions that you feel when you lose a loved one. The biggest trigger warning on this book is definitely grief. I think Rebecca Searle did such a good job representing grief in this book because she really made me feel like I was inside of Katie's mind and experiencing the emotions that she was going through once she found out her mom died. It's so crazy to think that that was something that she was able to invoke in me as a writer. Like, I personally have never grieved a loved one. I've never really lost someone that's really close to me. I've lost family, but family that's like very distant or not directly related, like immediate family to me. So I've never really experienced the grief of like losing like a mom or a dad or even a grandmother, like, or a child or a sibling. Like, haven't experienced something like that. But for Rebecca Searle to be able to help me feel that from a third person, it's really, really interesting to see an author be able to invoke those types of feelings inside of a person that you're reading about, you know? It's a very emotionally driven book, so just keep that in mind. But there is a very happy medium between like character and plot development. Um, it's not a book of just like for the vibes. It's There's definitely a very much deeper message embedded within the story, which I really appreciate. And also it's set in Italy, and I love Italy, if you know me, and I'm dying to go to Italy. So that was one thing that also Rebecca Searle did so amazing throughout the entire book. Like the imagery, like you could just perfectly and she perfectly encapsulated what Italy is and how it looks and like what I envisioned Italy to be. That's exactly how Rebecca Searle wrote it down in the book. Like, she did such a good job with the imagery portion of the book too. All in all, the whole book was great, and I rated it a 4 star overall. Really, the only thing that like knocked it down the star for me was the fact that it was like so heavy with the grief. Like, she really like honed in on the fact that Katie was grieving, and it's heavy to read about those things sometimes. Like, I cried so many times during that book because of the emotions and how you really sympathize for Katie and for the emotions that she's going through, because it's never easy to lose a loved one, especially your mom. Because it was so grief heavy, that's why I knocked it a little bit of a point. I shouldn't have, but it's just that the way that I felt, I was like, oh my god, like it wasn't a bad timing for me to read the book because I wasn't going through anything myself, but it's just so sad. Like, do you get me? I'm so sorry. I'm going on a rant. Never mind. Let's keep it moving. Well, this is just a little midpoint reminder to let you know that the subscribe button is right down there looking at you for you to click it. And then maybe at the end of the video, if you did overall like all of my reviews and the books that I read and my ratings, maybe you could hit the like button too. It helps me a lot, and I really appreciate all of the love that I get here on my channel, so thank you. The next book we're going to talk about is actually an e-arc that was sent to me very kindly by the author directly, and that book is The Nemesis Pact by Ashley Lynn East. This book was the exact type of romance palette cleanser that I needed after reading so many heavy books back to back. So this is a dual POV book. We're following Jonathan and Abby. Abby is your regular type of girl just working her job, and then Jonathan is her boss, and they have kind of a little bit of an enemy situation going on between each other. Abby is just straight up always on Jonathan's nerves, and Jonathan is always going out of his way to do things to purposely annoy her, purposely do things against her for her to get annoyed at him, things like that. So they have this type of little hatred for each other, right? The book starts out that they're at this bar with all of their coworkers having drinks, and then all of a sudden Abby's ex-fiance shows up with like this Victoria's Secret model, and when she goes and sees him, she's like, oh hey. And then her ex-fiance is like, oh hey, like, are you here with anyone? And then when as soon as she turns around, she sees Jonathan, which is her boss, keep that in mind, grabs him, and she's like, yep, this is my boyfriend Jonathan. And then they create this whole fake relationship to get back at her ex-fiance, because her ex-fiance actually left her at the altar the day of her wedding. Talk about slimy bastard. They create the agreement that they're going to go ahead and have a fake relationship to go ahead and get back at Abby's ex-fiance, right? So obviously that's one trope, fake dating, and your girl loves a fake dating trope. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Then we come to find out that Abby's ex-fiance is actually buying out the company that she works for, and they're going on this whole company retreat out to this different place, all of them together. And this is where the next trope comes up, which is sharing of one bed. And your girl loves when there's only one bed that has to be shared. The forced proximity of it all. It's just, it's definitely a very tropey book. I'm not gonna lie to you, but if you're a romance reader and you like these types of tropes, trust and believe me that you're going to eat this book up. The only thing that kind of took me out of the book element is the fact that there was so much modern language used, like TikTokers or Bestie, and then they talked about Selena Gomez and Benny at a point. I don't mind that there's modern language used. It just, for me personally, it definitely kind of pulls me out of the story and makes me feel like I'm not actually reading a fiction book anymore. That's honestly like my only complaint about the book because everything else worked perfectly. I did give the book a 4 star overall. I really did enjoy it. It's like a really great palate cleanser, in my opinion. I read it after I finished reading One Italian Summer and Almond. And yeah, Almond wasn't like the most like emotionally driven story, but after One Italian Summer, definitely. It was just a fun, silly, haha, good time, honestly. I really enjoyed it. I had such a fun time reading it. It was a quick read too. So the dual POV definitely worked in this book, and the tropes were definitely troping. It fit the story perfectly, and all in all, I had a happily ever after too. So I'm happy with the book. Perfect 4 star romance book. Next book we're going to talk about is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one I did start it in July because I started listening to it on Spotify as an audiobook, but then I ran out of my Spotify listening hours, so I had to wait till August for it to renew so I could finish it. So that's why I'm counting it in my August wrap up. But honestly, this book was the one. This book was the one. Okay. So the story is set in the 1980s, and we're following Joan Goodwin, who has just applied to become a part of the space program at NASA. Just keep in mind that this was back then where it was a very male dominated field, and that's when they had first like started allowing women into the actual space program and things like that. So Taylor Jenkins Reid did so much research. You could just tell that she did so much research for this book because she goes into the details of the space program, how to get into it, what the prerequisites are, sorry. Um, you go through the entire training program and how it works, and it's like it was so cool to like learn about these things because me personally, I have always loved space. I dreamt about being an astronaut at one point when I was younger, and reading about that was definitely like the icing on the cake for me because I really love space things. So that was one driving factor for my final rating. If you can't already catch my drift as to what I rated it. And then we're also following this little bit of a romance subplot. I don't want to say subplot because I don't think it was a subplot. It was very much prevalent throughout the entire story. It didn't like punch and like hit you that there's a real romance happening until like 50% away. This book had me gut wrenched, like ugly crying type. I did a 24-hour reading challenge and I did a blog for it that's on my channel. And that's where I was listening to it, and I posted a little short clip of me listening to like the last like 10% ish of the book, and you see like the visceral reaction that I had to hearing the last 10% of that book. It was so impactful and so moving. Like, it's a queer love story, might I add. And in the state of the climate that we are in right now in the United States, and me as a queer person myself, it really touched my heart and pulled at my heartstrings in a way that really, really drove home the fact that love wins at the end of the day, forever and always. If you can't tell, I rated this book a 5 star. It was so good. I had the physical copy as my trophy copy. Like, I sincerely fell in love with Joan and Vanessa, and their love story was so beautiful. Like, this is gonna be a book that I'm going to remember and talk about for the rest of my days, probably. The next book I read, it was just a short little memoir called My Next Breath by Jeremy Renner. If you don't know who Jeremy Renner is, he's Hawkeye from the Avengers in Marvel. And I know he's also the main character in Mayor of Kingstown and some other show or movie I'm not remembering right now. But I mainly know him as Hawkeye from the Marvel Avengers. And then his memoir is based on the accident that he experienced back in 2024 or 2023. Now I'm forgetting. I think 2023, but don't quote me. He had a skiing accident back in 2023 that he basically got completely crushed by a snowplow. And the whole story goes on to like the events leading up to that day, the actual event of it happening and how he felt and like how it happened in the blink of an eye basically, and then all the preceding recovery and how it was afterwards. I personally don't like giving a rating to memoirs because I feel like I'm no one to give a specific rating to someone's life story or someone's experience like that. So I did rate this one 5 stars, just, because I feel like that's going to be my base rating for any memoir at this point. But you really get a sense of the type of person that Jeremy Renner is. I was reading through the reviews after I finished the book because I had like mixed emotions because I always liked Jeremy Renner, but after listening to the memoir, not that I felt any kind of way against him or anything. I just felt like he kind of felt like a little like superior in a sense. I don't know if I'm conveying this the right way, but it just felt like he's above everyone else at some points. That's how I felt like he was coming off in certain parts of the memoir. But I guess rightfully so, since he went through a near death experience, but at the same time, you shouldn't be like cocky, you should be thankful, you know? Like you were given a second chance to live. Like don't get cocky with it either. But maybe that's just the way that he is. Maybe that he like it's just him being playful or like just just his regular self, like not meaning it with any ill intent. But it could be perceived as what I'm saying. Take the time to go to read the reviews on this one and you'll see what I mean. Like it really was eye opening to me. I was like, you know what, that's true, that's true, that's true. But anyways, I digress completely here. It was a nice little memoir, quick memoir. I listened to this one too on audio through Spotify, and I did it also with the 24-hour reading challenge just because I wanted to finish off the challenge with an audiobook. And it was a perfect read. Like it was super quick. It was a very interesting story. Like the before, during, and after events, it all like really puts it into perspective that anything could happen within the blink of an eye. Like one moment you could be happy, the next moment, boom, like something super tragic could happen and change the course of your life completely. And then moving along to my final and best book of the month, and that book was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Girl, I literally don't even know where to start with this book. Like, holy crap. Let me start with it took me a month to finish this book. I started it on August 1st, and I'm recording this video on August 31st. It took me till today to finish it because this is a chunky book. This is 804 pages. With the glossary and the timeline and the characters, it equals out to like 848, I think it was. But it took me a while to give you like one describer of it. Think of it as like your feminist epic high fantasy. We're definitely following multiple people and multiple stories. So that's one thing to give you the heads up on. Like, there's so many different people that you meet all of a sudden, like at the beginning. Like, you are following at minimum like 4 or 5 people, and it's told in third person, so you're getting the emotions and the thoughts and the feelings and everything from everyone involved in every single chapter, which I appreciate, especially in an epic high fantasy like this, because I would want to know every little detail. Samantha Shannon does characterization so well. Like the character development of every single character that we meet is astronomical. Okay, like you really grow such a strong connection to every single character at that at any given time that something happens to a character or someone talks slyly towards one of the characters, you kind of like, like it hits you. You're like, like, because you grow so close to these people and like you really feel for them and you really are feel like you're in the story and you're in this world, because that's another thing that Samantha Shannon does so impressingly is world building. From the history to the actual world that we're living in, to the politics, to the religion, to the dragon lore, like every single aspect of the world building was impeccably done in my opinion. I'm not gonna lie to you, it takes quite a while to like get used to the writing style and get used to like the story and get more familiar with the different characters and how they all like coalesce together. Like it really does take a little bit of time to get used to, but I promise you that it is so worth it and so such a high reward at the end of the book. It's very slow. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it's definitely a very slow burn. The first 50% is all about building up the world and getting to know the characters and where they came from and like talking about the future events that could potentially happen and the different avenues that can be taken. So just go with the mindset, if you are to read this book, go with the mindset that it's definitely a task and it's definitely gonna take a lot of brain power. And I even have a whole note on my phone with notes on the book and like certain key events that were important that I want to remember. And I find that I didn't really need the note with all of my notes like that, because another thing that Samantha Shannon does so impeccably beautifully within the book is the fact that she's able to give you a recap of the main points of that have occurred after every few chapters. So the first time I noticed it was like around chapter like 10ish maybe, where she kind of like there was two people having a conversation, and in that conversation they were going down the whole sequence of events that we have learned about to that point. And I saw that that kept happening throughout the entire story. There was days where I would take like a few days of a break from reading the book to read a different book, like maybe on my Kindle, or read something else kind of like that's easier to just read instead of so much brain power. I would go back into the book and I'm like, oh my god, I'm scared, what if like I'm forgetting something? No, I'm not forgetting anything, because guess what? Within the next chapter or a few pages, you are already going to find out about what happened and how we are at that current point right then and there, which it's like mind blown. I don't think I've read a book where those things are done before. Like, yes, there's recaps of events, of important events that have happened in books sometimes, but the way that Samantha Shannon does it, it's like incomparable. Like there's no other book like it in my opinion. I already have the second book, if you can't tell right here. This is actually a prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree. And I know that there is a novella coming out now in October, maybe. I'll put the release date right here on screen for you guys, but it's called Among the Burning Flowers. And this is a novella that's also supposed to be like a little prequel right before The Priory, like between A Day of Fallen Night and The Priory. So I'm definitely gonna just hop straight into A Day of Fallen Night. I don't want to forget anything about this world. And then I believe that I should be done with that one by the time that Among the Burning Flowers comes out, and then I'll have those done. And I know for a fact that Samantha Shannon is thinking of doing at least one more book for the series that's supposed to be a sequel to The Priory, and we're going to be following the same characters from The Priory, which I'm so excited about, and I can't wait because I'm so in love with all of these characters and I want to know everything about their life and what happened after the end of this book, okay? And if you can't tell from that review, I gave this book a 5 star. I debated a lot between like 4.75 or 5, just because there was like little certain tidbits here and there that I was kind of like, like turned me off. But when I put it into perspective, like the grand scheme of things, this is a 5 star read. Like I'm not gonna try to be nitpicky and be like, oh no, I didn't like that it was a slow burn, or oh no, I didn't like that it took me a little bit to get used to. Like, no, I don't care about those things anymore. This is a 5 star read. This is the best book I've read in a while, okay? And I urge you and I implore you to go read it. Please. But with that, we have come to the end of this wrap up. And those are all of the 7 books that I read this month. I fear that it was a pretty good reading month, I'm not gonna lie, especially with three five-star reads. Even though one was a memoir and it really wasn't gonna be considered a five, but as I said, I don't like to give anything less than a five to a memoir. But it was a pretty good reading month. The best book of the month was definitely The Priory of the Orange Tree. I'm pretty sure you got that from the whole video, but nonetheless, I have to reiterate that it was the best book that I've read this month. And it's my new Roman Empire. I'm never going to shut up about it. But yeah, my beautiful darlings, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to my channel. And make sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified every single time that I post a new video. I also obviously have social media. I have Instagram and TikTok. It's always going to be at Darling I'm Hooked. And I also have Storygraph, Goodreads, and Fable. All of my socials are linked down below in the description box with links so you could go directly to the profile. If you stayed this far into the video, I definitely want you to go ahead and leave me a little dragon emoji in the comments down below just so I know who the real ones are that stayed away all the way to the end. And also let me know if you read any of the books that I read this month. I really want to discuss these books, especially The Prior, The Orange Tree. Like, I just want to talk about this book for the next 24 to 48 hours nonstop. So if you have read it, please leave me a comment and let's discuss down there everything Priory of the Orange Tree. But yeah, my beautiful darlings, with that, let's get hooked.